The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
Hey, this is Matt Landry, the voice of Anakin Skywalker in Star Wars The Clone Wars. You're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars. This is where the fun begins.
You're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, episode 175.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Hey everyone, I'm Angela Sealana, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away. From movies to books to TV shows and more, we're looking at the deeper themes and meanings found in Star Wars. And today we're diving into the 7th and, believe it or not, penultimate episode in the debut season of Ahsoka series. And on our crew tonight, we have, first of all, Master Ikrit, aka Thomas Salerno. Hello, Thomas.
Hello, Angela.
Good to have you back, Master. We also have with us someone who's been very busy lately, the pod racer, Ryan Nafziger. Hi, Ryan.
Hello, hello.
And if you don't know what Ryan's been up to, join our Discord at sqpn.com/discord.
Will remain a mystery.
Yes, you will find out what awards he has won and all that good stuff. And finally, joining us once again is our one and only Padawan, Josh Beeghley. What's up, Josh?
Hello, hello.
Well, this week's episode, part 7, Dreams and Madness, which is so fun to say, is summarized on StarWars.com with the following very vague statement. Hera must answer to the New Republic, while far, far away, a reunion takes place. So before we dive in, we want to take a brief moment to recognize the folks who make this podcast possible, our patrons, including Haley D., the S family, Pat S., Kate N., and Ron L. Thank you so much, y'all. And if you out there want to help StarQuest continue our mission, please consider becoming a patron at sqpn.com/give. All right, guys. So let's talk about overall first impressions of Dreams and Madness. Thomas, we'll start with you.
Okay. And I'm sure we'll get into this later, but the only disappointment I really had was that there was seemingly a dearth of both dreams and madness in this episode. But besides that, I actually really liked it. I had a lot of fun, especially the stuff with Ezra and Sabine and the Noti people. But yeah, and I think we're also getting a lot more interesting wrinkles with Baylan and his apprentice. And I'm actually surprised that going into the finale, like how little I know of or can guess of what's going to happen. And that's just really exciting. I saw some talk that like people have said like this episode seemingly didn't advance the plot much at all, but I didn't really have that impression. I was just more like just taking in everything that was going on. And yeah, I just thought overall it was a really entertaining episode, and I can't wait to see what happens next.
Okay, well, from Master to Padawan. So, Josh, what was your overall impression?
I love Thrawn. I love the way
Make
that
it a t-shirt.
Yes. But just seeing him explain his madness, I guess, with the theme of the episode, was just amazing to see. And also, like, I love like the small little bit where he was like, yes, if both the master and apprentice go, we'll surely win. And then obviously the Siths, I guess, the contractors,
whatever they are.
Yeah.
They messed up his plan, which is always what happens. So
always.
I just enjoy Thrawn and his battle strategies because he's seemingly without flaw, but it's other people that are his flaw.
All right. Ryan, what did you think of this episode?
I think it's a really good setup episode. I think that it teed up a lot of things to happen really, really good. I am only disappointed that Chopper was not put on trial for his war crimes. They had a whole court right there, and they missed it. Missed their opportunity. I think my favorite part was the Purrgil being smart and not dying.
Yeah.
Not all
Yes,
running
like
through
that.
the minefield. They said, no thanks, and left.
Noped out. Yeah.
It was real life Minesweeper for them. And they said, we refuse to play this game. Yes, I agree.
They said, this isn't 1992. Goodbye.
Yeah, so Madness, Thrawn. Okay, we're gonna talk about the meaning of the episode, but I kind of want to leave that for the end. So we'll just kind of sprinkle throughout if we notice things, and then maybe come to a conclusion as to why this was called Dreams of Madness. For me, I would say my overall impression was that I liked the episode. I did appreciate learning more about Baylan and Shin. We got some character development from both of them, I think. And they were very, really vague hints of character development. And I don't know, watching this season kind of feels like the kids in Hansel and Gretel, where they're just, was that the one where they have this, like, they're following this
trail
of
gingerbread into the forest. Yeah.
It's like they're giving us just these little bits every episode, and we're sort of eating it up and following the trail, but we have no idea where it's going. So yeah, I really don't have like a solid overall first impression of this episode, but let's dive into it. So first of all, oh snap, Senator Sealana. He got shut down by C-3PO, apparently, who is just a mere droid.
Although everyone else seems to think he's famous.
Everyone else, I think he was just salty because, like, literally the rest of the room was like, oh, that's C-3PO, the voice of Leia / one of the heroes from the rebellion.
Yeah, it was like, I mean, Mon Mothma said 3PO, his nickname, his endearing, so endearing. But okay, so we have this trial, as you mentioned, Ryan, not Chopper's trial, which hopefully we get in a short someday because that would be hilarious. But so we had Hera on trial for her disobedience, and Senator Sealana was really not impressed with her and not interested in the idea of any Imperial remnants getting together and having a plan. So, Ryan, I know you really wanted to talk about this. Tell me what your questions are, what your thoughts are about this particular scene.
Yeah, so this scene has stood out for me because I think there's a very clear progression with a lot of the new Star Wars content about fleshing out what the New Republic was like between the end, the sort of the period of peace between the end of Star Wars Episode 6 and the beginning of Star Wars Episode 7. And I think that this scene, like a lot of the others that they've been putting out, kind of shows what kind of a government the New Republic was. And I was interested to hear your guys' takes on it, but I kind of got the impression that, like, the New Republic didn't grapple with the mistakes of the Empire, and that was kind of their downfall. That they weren't And like this scene kind of shows it, because no one wants to talk about the Imperial remnants. No one wants to consider the possibility that there's a lot of people that live in the New Republic who used to be Empire supporters overnight. And like, it reminds me of how like when you don't address the like root cause of something, the root cause of an issue, it just comes back, and it just comes back faster than you think it will. So I don't know if you guys had more thoughts on this sort of whole arc that's been going on in both Ahsoka and kind of some in Mando season 3, with like, what is the New Republic? What is it like, you know, and why did it just disappear overnight, seemingly, in the sequel trilogy?
As a history buff, it almost seems to me like they are combining aspects of post-World War I Germany with post-World War II Germany. Because the New Republic seems to be, obviously, it's very shaky, and it's not dealing well with its past, kind of like the Republic that existed in Germany between the wars, which is commonly called the Weimar Republic. And it's also a lot like post-World War II Germany, because after World War II, the Allies engaged in this process called denazification, where they tried to... their initial idea was to have a government with no former Nazis in it. But they soon realized that that was actually unworkable, because to be a civil servant in Nazi Germany, you had to be a card-carrying party member no matter what you believed. To work in government, you just had to be a member of the party. So they're like, well, to keep a functioning government, we can't just fire everybody and hire a bunch of people who don't know how to run a government. So they ended up keeping a lot of low-level civil servants who were former Nazi party members in both German governments, in West Germany and in the communist East Germany. No matter what the communists said about hating Nazis, they had a lot of former Nazis in their government too. And I like that they're adding these kind of historical elements, because it adds to that kind of realism where you see that, like, yeah, you know, after a huge war like this, and how do you dismantle a totalitarian state and cobble together a democracy from scratch? Like, that's an interesting question. And it seems to be like that process is laying the seeds for the New Republic's eventual downfall at the hands of the First Order, which is and it also kind of links into what Baylan is talking about this cycle of the rise and fall of empires, of the continual cycle of rivalry between the Jedi and the Sith. So I think that's led to some really interesting storytelling beats.
Josh, what are your thoughts on how the New Republic is shaping up here?
It's interesting to see it from their leader's standpoint, of how you have someone like the senator, whose name I'm forgetting, who's very much like, you need to stop acting like this is still a war going on, to Hera, and actually make her be a general and act like a normal soldier. But how can you transition out of that if that's all you've really known is war? And that aspect of people aren't also wanting to go back into a government that they're going to be like, they have too much control again. And it's a lot of, they don't want any sort of control, but they know they need it. And I feel like having too decentralized, or I guess too much away from a government, or like no sort of centrality to it in any aspect, is sort of where it seems like it's going, is going to be why like the First Order is able to come up in the middle of it again.
Yeah, I have to, I appreciate all of your thoughts. I tend to come from like, where is the panel of, senators going wrong on a personal level. And I like how you brought it to Hera's personal background, because she has kind of brought that up. I think that is one of her motivations for making sure that Thrawn is gone for good. But for Senator Ziono, I don't know if any of y'all watched any of the Resistance episodes of the series, the Resistance animated series. But Ziono in that show, his background is kind of like a businessman. He's sort of he's kind of like a Lando Calrissian sort of character, where he is in charge of a ship that is kind of like this huge base in and of itself. And he takes care of these people who are constantly being attacked by pirates and whatnot. And he has to defend them over and over again. And he's kind of like a governor in a way, but he runs it more of like a businessman, not like a military leader. And so I tend to think about that in how he needs proof, essentially. I can see why he would need proof, more proof than Hera is providing to them for such a huge threat and drastic measures, assuming that Thrawn is coming back. So I can sympathize with that. And I think that he is not, if we were in his position, I don't think we would say, oh my gosh, he's being so stupid. I think he's being as prudent as someone in his position and from his background would be. But I think that's a reflection of good writing on the part of the show.
I also think it's interesting that no one else on the panel spoke. I mean, we had Tem Num and Admiral Akbar on the panel, and they didn't speak. I think there's also something to be said there. There is a sort of silent complacency that's kind of starting to rear itself. These were guys who, they were in it, just like Hera. And they not only didn't defend Hera, they also didn't voice their opinion or speak to what they think is going on. They let one guy kind of take over.
Through, yeah.
Except for Mon Mothma, she had no problem. She had no problem contesting things and trying to speak her mind. But we did have other people on the panel that did not speak at all.
I thought it was interesting, and I don't know if this was a slip in the writing or not, but where Ziono is talking about Hera's report of what happened and saying, are we to believe any of this? There's no proof. And I'm like, wait a minute. It wasn't just Hera. It was the whole squadron of X-Wings and those 3 cruisers who showed up. And the 3 cruisers who showed up, they saw the space whales and what was going on. They have instruments and presumably holo recorders. Those X-Wings would have recorded the Eye of Sion and all that stuff. And I'm like, what do you mean there's no proof that we can't believe any of it? That just seemed...
2 people died.
Right. There were X-Wing pilots who were killed. And it just seemed, at least in that moment, he seemed to be being unreasonably obstinate. But again, that may be by design. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, that's a good point. C-3PO coming in as Leia's messenger, did it underscore for you the fact that Carrie Fisher wasn't available to play herself and that they didn't want to, artificially recreate her digitally? Or, did that bother you, or were you just fine and you thought that this was pretty natural?
I think that they did it in a pretty natural way of saying, she's got other stuff she's dealing with, but here's someone else that can relay a message for her. And it doesn't seem the most important. And even in Rebels, whenever she had met them in the one episode, it was under dire circumstances that Leia was even really there. I don't see her much as being yes, it would always be nice to see Leia and be like, oh my gosh, she's back kind of thing. but I think 3PO is a good way to get the message in, and I don't know, she likes her robots.
Does.
I agree. I liked seeing 3PO. You know, after a moment I was like, oh, you know, that means, you know, Leia's not going to be here. But at the same time, I just like Anthony Daniels as 3PO. I think that whole scene was also kind of a little bit of a fourth wall nod to the fact that how much Anthony Daniels is respected and beloved by both the Star Wars creative team and the fan community, that everyone in the trial room just knows him and respects 3PO. That was great. I was kind of laughing at Senator Ziono when he was so insistent that they couldn't take, you know, evidence. They couldn't accept evidence from a droid. And I'm like, wait a minute. Droids have existed in this universe for thousands of years, and you're telling me there is not established legal precedent for a droid for a droid to act as someone's legal proxy, which is what he was doing. I'm like, there must be precedent for that. I'm like, be quiet.
I think he's kind of out of order there.
Yeah.
Without going into a whole other discussion on like the ethics of digital recreation of actors, I do think it was really appropriate to use 3PO as a proxy for Leia's voice. I don't think it felt out of place. And I also think that it puts forward a really interesting sort of like political situation, because if you think about it, why is Senator Organa not at this proceeding? You know, like, it's not because she's not important. We had other people who were there at the Battle of Endor at the proceeding. Maybe it's because she's not on board with the New Republic leadership. That would fit really well with her sort of from the heart character. Like, Princess Leia is a from the heart character. And it's no secret she's literally leading a resistance movement in episode 7. So like that, I think that if anything, this was very fitting to show that there are already major figures who are kind of not on board with things already. And that's very I think it was very appropriate.
It also fits with how Leia is portrayed in her role as a senator in Claudia Gray's novel Bloodlines.
I was just going to bring up that book. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where not only is she sort of skeptical of the New Republic, but she's also willing to bend the rules and do things that aren't exactly protocol when the Republic just isn't getting it done.
Yeah, I have that book right next to and above my head on my shelf. That book really, I would highly suggest it for anyone who is interested in, you know, this idea that Leia's out doing other things. And that was immediately where my brain went when I realized, oh, she's not here. Why would she not be here at this really important trial? Because she's in charge of the Defense Council, apparently. But also in that novel, she's off on her own kind of investigative missions, trying to track down what's going on with these Imperial remnants and bad guys. So, so that's a really cool book.
It's like 3 steps ahead. She's already going for the Imperial remnants where people are debating whether or not they exist.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's move to another droid and our hero in the belly of the whale, or maybe not the belly, but more like the mouth of the whale. Ahsoka is using training hollows that Anakin had recorded for her. And when I realized this, I said, wow, because at first I thought, are we getting Force Ghost Anakin? But no, I noticed the texture was a hollow recording. What did you guys think of this? Does the fact that he recorded all of these training hollows for her, and when did he do them? Does this change how you see Anakin? And do you think that Ahsoka's relationship with Anakin has changed through this very short season of the series that we've had? Because I would say yes to the latter. I think definitely Ahsoka had some hesitations about her master at the beginning of this episode, this series.
I think that, I think it really is really interesting that Anakin recorded training hollows because, I mean, newsflash, he's not going to be around for a lot of the time to train Ahsoka. I was watching her training sequence. A brief aside, I was watching her training sequence and was really happy to see that some of the same moves that she used in the training sequence were ones that they showed during Tales of the Jedi Season 1 with the Ahsoka training short. Because Anakin says some really similar things in the training hollow. But I think that they're kind of using Ahsoka's relationship with Anakin to show why she kind of wasn't really able to be a master. No, I think there is some. Obviously, we see all of the unresolved trauma in the flashback episode, practically. And I think that, I don't know if Ahsoka's relationship with Anakin's gotten better, but I do think that she's gotten a lot of closure.
Yeah. Josh, what do you think about Ahsoka and her relationship with Anakin, especially given this particular scene with the training hollows?
I feel like the holograms in the training was very fitting, just because of Anakin's caring nature and wanting everyone to be their best, and especially wanting Ahsoka to do her best and to succeed. And so that made a lot of sense to me. But then whenever you brought up how her attitude changed in the season, I was thinking about it. I was like, she definitely wasn't fully around with the terms of Anakin's whole arc and what happened with him, but she sort of saw him through it all. She just didn't have the time to actually process it. And then in the world between worlds, something happened for her where she was able to get a better grip on life, I guess is the best way I could put it, of understanding everything and making it seem a bit happier of a relationship rather than I failed my master kind of thing.
I think it's very interesting that she's been holding on to these training hollows all these years. It struck me that this is probably the first time she's watched them in a long time. At least since she's never watched them since she learned it was Vader. But and possibly for much longer. But I just felt that it's interesting that even after learning what happened, she held on to them. And that now, like you guys said, now that she kind of has that sense of closure, she's able to go back to them and say at the end after it was over that he was a good master. And she's kind of made peace that like Star Wars keeps repeating that kind of like the real Anakin died when he became Vader. And I feel like she kind of accepts that, because I really feel she was, traumatized even more by the events of Twilight of the Apprentice, that he was just so far gone that not only could she not save him, but he tried to kill her.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like she's finally moved past that a little bit. I did think it was funny that, though, she said this was his final training recording, but it feels like from what he says in it, it would have been one of the early training recordings. But that's just a nitpick. Otherwise, I loved this scene. I thought it was spectacular. And I just love seeing Hayden Christensen in the Clone Wars shoulder and chest armor, because I always thought that was a cool look for Anakin, because it kind of foreshadows the Vader armor. Later, he has a very similar chest piece. And so I like that outfit for him.
Yeah. It was really cool. Just the aesthetics of it was fantastic to see and to witness and to hear him say Asajj Ventress, which I don't think we've ever heard him say. I think all of your thoughts have me going back to when I first watched this scene, and I can't help but connect it to people. This isn't my particular situation, but I know of people who have had a parent who either left them or there was some kind of trauma in the relationship, and they worry that they're going to turn into their parent, and become this sort of terrible aspect of their parent that they can't help but hold on to because of that trauma. And so in that way, it was really moving to watch her coming to grips with the Anakin who was truly her master, the one who raised her in the best of ways, and not the person who gave in to their temptations, and to their fears. And, it's part of the grieving process that we have to sort of look back on our difficulties with people and in relationships and realize that people are complex, and that there were good times along with the bad times. That's one of the really important things to do when you're healing, to kind of reconcile that. So I think one of the reasons why this scene was particularly moving was because of that, because you can see that Ahsoka has sort of come to reconcile in her mind, and her spirit with Anakin. So onto some maybe funner stuff. The space chase with Huyang and Ahsoka. And I thought this was a really good chase. It wasn't all high-speed chase in a way. It was more of like a thriller or like a haunted house, but you're just in a ship with like space whale bones all around you and you can't see anything. And Thrawn has his guys around every corner. I don't know. It was kind of cool. Did you guys have fun with this? What did you think of this chase and having the Dathomiri mothers and all that good stuff?
I love what they're doing with the Dathomiri mothers. I think the last time I was on, we talked a lot about how they're looking like the Fates and how they kind of have this aesthetic about them that makes them look a lot like the Fates, and they're using the string and the ball and everything. Still holding out for that Lolthcat stealing one of them. Fingers crossed. We've got one more episode. I think it was, not to like jump into something else, but I think it was really interesting that they were listening for Ahsoka to reach out with the Force, and they like just pinpointed her on that. And I think that was really, it was really cool that they were just, it felt to me like they were just waiting for the thread to twitch, like a spider just waiting for the thread to twitch, and they're like, that is where they are. I also like I said before, that the Purgles weren't idiots. They didn't just keep running forward and blow themselves up. I was so worried that we were going to see them all just blow up, but no, they were smart. They said, hell no, and left. That was a nice little moment.
One thing that question that it answered for me about the Purgle, specifically the ring of Purgle bones, because I was like, wait a minute. I'm like, so how did they decompose in outer space? And you can see when they're hiding among the debris, there's these little organisms, like critters that go around and like strip them to the bone. It's almost like if you've seen videos of whale falls, where like, you know, a whale will fall to the very bottom of the ocean and there's a whole little ecosystem that crops up around the whale's body to like strip it to the bone. And I'm like, that's neat. I like that. More cosmozoans, more space living organisms, please, because I think that's a very cool sci-fi thing that, you know, Star Wars has always done, back to, you know, the Minox and the space slug from Empire Strikes Back. So I like to see those kinds of creatures.
As an avid aquarium fan and aquascaper, shrimp really do eat that fast.
I didn't even notice this. That's really cool. No. I liked whenever they were hiding in the bones, and it just reminded me a lot of like the Empire Strikes Back, of them just being stuck on the asteroid and then obviously being like brought out of the cave that wasn't really a cave. But it was, I liked the game of cat and mouse. It just made it very fun. And then seeing Thrawn in the background and just being like, she'll come out eventually. We don't need to worry about her. So I think it went well.
Yeah. Well, okay. So apparently there's an inquisitorial database, which is, of course there is. I mean, that's a database I would enjoy browsing.
All of the dirt on all the Jedi. How many of them had children?
Secret Lives of Jedi. No.
Jedi Lives. It's the tabloids of the galaxy.
Well, Thrawn learns all about Ahsoka through this database, including the identity of her master. You could almost see them. I mean, you really could. You saw the moment on his face when he found this out. What was going through his mind, do you think? Was he thinking, oh no? Was he thinking interesting? Was he thinking like, you know, what was going on?
Having read the books where he interacts with both Anakin and Vader, I think he was thinking like, oh, this may be a potential monkey wrench. You know, because what he says later, that, you know, Ahsoka Tano will be unpredictable and dangerous. And it's like he knows that because he has worked with her master both when he was a Jedi and when he was a Sith. And he knows how dangerous Anakin can be and how unpredictable he is. And in the book, when I think it's Thrawn Alliances, that's what it is. When he works with Anakin, their kind of clash is that Anakin is so unpredictable and impulsive and just does things, where Thrawn kind of wants to meticulously plan everything out, and their personalities clash that way, but they also learn from one another. And so I think he also may have kind of a new respect for Ahsoka, given that he knows this person. He respected Anakin, and he also respected Anakin as Vader, which he knew who Vader was, because of course he did, because he's Thrawn. But yeah, I liked that moment where you clearly saw on his face like, ooh, okay. Wasn't expecting that. I like that you can even catch him on the hop.
Yeah, any other comments on that, Josh or Ryan?
I think it totally makes sense to immediately try to figure out who the master was. No. Obviously, they're gonna take on elements of, makes me wonder who Baylan's master is.
Right, exactly. Oh my gosh, definitely want to know that. Somebody make this database.
Yeah.
So
Jedi
I think it's
Pokedex.
just the Jedi Temple Archives, but with a new fancy name
Ancestry.com.
Yeah.
Well, I can imagine a Sith, like, you know how the typical stereotype of a hacker is like someone in a black hoodie, like on a computer. Just imagine like a Sith, they already have the hoodie down. So you just sit them in front of whatever device they use.
Yeah.
to hack into the temple archives.
Oh man, a Sith slicer.
That should be like a new class in like the Old Republic RPG. A Sith slicer.
Yeah. Do it.
I don't know. Maybe they weren't at that point because this was a long time ago, guys. So
right.
far away.
We've made that clear, I think. Okay, so yeah, the other cool thing that you mentioned earlier, Ryan, was that Ahsoka reaches out to Sabine using the Force. So the question is it significant that Sabine felt that Force call, or whatever you call it? Does that say anything about Sabine's ability to like feel the Force? Or is it simply Ahsoka's like power and her ability to use the Force? Josh, what do you think?
I'd like to see Sabine as like the blind guy from Rogue One, of like being able to like observe the Force around him, but like not necessarily use it in every way. And I think that sort of shows a bit, I guess, with Ahsoka being able to connect with Sabine there. But I feel like they were also using that as a means to try and explain the Kylo Ren and Rey connecting with each other. I feel like that's part of their main goal with that, but I don't fully know. Just because I feel like everyone was always hating on the sequels for that one of like them connecting like that. So this may be their way of trying to reconcile that aspect.
I definitely was thinking of Luke and Leia in the original trilogy. That was where my brain went. Thomas, You're nodding your head.
Yep.
Oh, I went the other way.
Well, no, yeah, I feel like what Rey and Kylo do is just like a jacked up version of that same sort of Force power. And my brother has also told me that in Knights of the Old Republic, there are two prominent characters who have a Rey and Kylo level connection in the Force. So there's definitely precedent. As for Sabine, I'm not so certain that like it proves that she's Force sensitive the way a Jedi is. I kind of agree with Josh that like she may be like at a Chirrut Imwe level, you know, where he was clearly in tune with the Force, but didn't use it in the way a Jedi does. Because I'm still operating under the assumption that everyone is broadly, like latently Force sensitive in the sense that the Force moves through all living things. It's just that not everybody can use it the way a Jedi can. And so Sabine may have some ability to tune into the Force and hear a call like what Ahsoka did, but I don't know if, I mean, if they go the easy way, they'll just make her a Jedi. But if they go the more interesting way, I think that she'll have some Force sensitivity, but not at a Jedi's level.
Ryan, what say you?
I took the scene as kind of hyping up Ahsoka more than I did showing that Sabine has progressed in her connection, because of the way they did all of the sound design for that scene. They had Ahsoka just focus in, they had all of these Force reverberating sound effects, and she just laid her head back and sort of connected with Sabine. So I would love to see Sabine not really be that Force sensitive at all, and this sort of kind of show how like a regular person might be able to connect with the Force in the Star Wars universe. But I think in that scene I saw a lot more about like a lot more about how powerful Ahsoka is, not really about how far Sabine has gotten in her training, because I think she's she's still where she's at.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So jumping down to the planet surface, because there's actually a lot that happens on the planetary surface. We're like, this conversation has become so much more rich than I anticipated, you guys. So I'm like, oh my gosh, we're only halfway through. The roly-poly pill bug Noti RV things that Sabine and Ezra are in. Kind of amazing.
Wars Airstreams.
That's right.
I thought it was really cool. It totally fit the Hobbit, halfling / turtle / crab vibe that we got. But Sabine was catching Ezra up on what happened in the galaxy since he left. Of course, everyone loving the whole, that's what people say when Ezra was like, and the Emperor died. Just like, that's what people say. So yeah, imagine being Ezra in that situation. Kind of crazy. Meanwhile, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, the last time he saw the Emperor, he tried to shoot fire. The Emperor tried to shoot fire at him in the World Between Worlds. So
right, yeah,
that's all he's seen of him.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Baylan Skull has this like little monologue and then parts ways with his Padawan, Shin. He encourages her to take her place in the coming empire, and then he engages with Ahsoka. He loses his howler to her. I mean, a lot happens, but ultimately, I'm wondering if you got any further clues from these interactions or these times that we had Baylan on camera. Any clues about his ultimate goals? Because I found it fascinating that he just kind of lets Shin go, and yeah, what's the point in training her if she's just kind of gonna go her own path, on a different path from him? Was this goal that he had all along to ally with Morgan, get to this planet, find some kind of unseen power? Was that his plan all along? And if so, was he just, did he need a personal assistant? Like, what? Why did he have a Padawan in the first place? I don't know. What do you guys think? Just jump in here.
I almost took it like he wanted Shin to learn a lesson, that because he could sense that desire in her for power, because she kept bringing it up, and he's like, look, that kind of temporal power is fleeting and is not what I'm looking for. And he encourages her to follow that passion of becoming part of the new empire, and gives her that parting wisdom of like, what does he say? If you're too eager for victory, it'll ensure your defeat. I think he wanted her to learn that lesson and then come back kind of chastened, almost like when a parent lets their kid mess up, in order that they learn something. I don't know, that was kind of the vibe I got from it. But I'm interested to see how their reunion goes, because I feel she's not going to be happy that he kind of left her in the lurch there.
It makes me think a lot about Baylan's like overall project. He does not want to create just the Sith version of the Jedi. He wants to do away with that. And I think that this was kind of his like, almost his like way of trying to do that, because he let Shin go, and I think his ideal was she defeats Ezra and Sabine and just sort of goes away and, I don't know, does something else. Like,
that was my
I don't know exactly
too.
what she's going to be doing on a planet that's abandoned in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but like, I think a lot of what's going on is we're kind of seeing Baylan and Ahsoka both make mistakes as masters and how they deal with it.
Okay.
Because like Baylan is trying to do something very particular. We don't know what it is, unfortunately. It's really cool though. He's trying to do something. He has a project. Ahsoka clearly has a project with Sabine, and they're both trying to do something new. And I'd have to think about this more and really process how they're kind of being juxtaposed between each other. But it seems to me like Baylan is the sort of anti-Ahsoka who hasn't processed the failures of probably his own master from the past, where Ahsoka has and has been able to move on and apply that to her new role, where Baylan is kind of just trying to distance himself away from the past and just move on from it without actually experiencing it and resolving his hurt.
That's a solid theory. So Thomas thinks Shin is going to come back. Brian thinks Shin. Well, I guess I don't know. I think she's going to leave him. I think she's going to leave him. She's going to try and kill him. I think that's extremely.
Yeah.
That seems to me like a really Shin thing to do.
Josh, what say you?
Yeah, she'd also come back and be like, "Why did you leave me? Why'd you let me do this?" And then she's gonna like act out in anger towards him and get a lesson. It was very interesting to see Shin's character and how she's, I guess, just more into it. I don't feel like we've really seen much in like this episode, along with last, like just really explored her. How even in the fight and like towards the end, where Ahsoka was like, "Hey, I'll teach you. We can help make you better," kind of thing. And she was like, I don't know if she always has those like that fear in her eyes or not, but like,
yeah,
she felt afraid and didn't know what to do. So I do think that she is gonna go back to Baylan, just because I feel like his goal was, if she wanted that, she would have died. And like, I think that was his end goal, is that if you're going to do this, you're going to die. So now she sort of saw that and then left and is going to go back to him and then see where it goes from there.
Okay, so I've also heard some people say that they think Shin is going to turn and become good. She's going to convert, quote unquote. I don't know about that. But I do feel betrayed, speaking of betrayal, because I know that there must be somebody out there listening to this show who knows something about Hebrew or Syriac, and none of you have written to us to tell us something that I learned through Google the other day, that Shin is a letter in the alphabet, in the Hebrew alphabet / Syriac alphabet. What? Why did you guys not tell me that?
Yeah,
Write to us.
It's in the dreidel game.
Send us feedback at starwars@sqpn.com. I'll just plug that now. If you know a little bit more about the meaning of that, I would really appreciate to hear that, because there's a billion things, a bajillion, a Google of things on Google. So going to maybe somebody who very quickly we want to have a geek out moment over, Ezra. He is now Force Monk.
Yes, he is Force Monk.
What did you guys think of his new combat style? Do you think it says something about his journey here and his relationship with the Force? Thomas?
Well, first of all, I want to say, when he said the Force is my ally, I like cheered out loud. I just love that, because I always like to see Jedi not rely so much on their lightsabers. You know, as Yoda says, you know, my ally is the Force. And I just love that. I was disappointed that later he did pick up a blaster and start using it, but I did like the force foo that he used. I thought it was very interesting and cool to watch. But yeah, and I liked him and Sabine's banter beforehand. I just want to say these two actors have inhabited these characters. Like both their banter at the end of the previous episode and their banter in this episode has been spot on, just like Rebels. And it's a tribute to how talented these actors are. They've clearly studied, the previous animated portrayals of these characters and have just inhabited them 100%. I felt like I was watching Rebels again. And yeah, I just like seeing Ezra in action again. It's so great.
Okay, Josh, go.
You can't stop but smile when you see Ezra fighting, because it's just there's a certain aspect of comedy to his fighting as well. And it's just he just likes toying with stormtroopers a bit and having fun with them. And even with Shin and stuff, he just stops her blade in front of him, and he's looking at her blade and is mesmerized by it, whoa, this is so cool. I don't know. I like this fight. I think it suits him well to become just this guy who doesn't need lightsabers. Of course, he's still gonna knock a few stormtroopers over, but that's all you need to do to kill them, because they're just bodies. But I absolutely loved it, and I can't wait to see more of him fighting. I really hope to see him just develop more of being in with the Force, and I think that's something that they're trying to go with for Ezra, and I think just an overall sense of developing the Force with the Ahsoka series. And I think Ezra is a really good way to do that, where he's been away without a lightsaber and has just kind of been a hermit in this desolate place, kind of like Yoda was, where he didn't need that lightsaber and relied only on the Force. Except Ezra's not 800 years old. So
yeah.
When 900 years old you reach, look as good you will not.
Yeah.
Ryan, you got anything for us?
The only thing that I just had to look up after seeing that were the principles of Krav Maga. And I just was really curious to see that they did emphasize how Ezra was using the weapons of his enemies actively and taking them up and using them, which is a principle in Krav Maga. I'm not in any way a martial artist, so Krav Maga aficionados, do not come after me in the comment section for completely going to a Wikipedia article for 5 seconds and being interested in it. But I was actually really excited to see that Ezra did use what appear to be on paper principles from Krav Maga, which was developed as an Israeli fighting style to be extremely deadly and quick and use one situation to your own advantage, which clearly he did. So very, very cool. I don't know if that was intentional or not by the show writers, but it just presented really well.
Yeah. And martial art aficionados, email us.
Yes.
StarWars@sqpn.com. Okay, you guys. All right. So we've come to the final moments here. I've heard someone say that Thrawn was very similar to the Thrawn in Rebels because he was constantly justifying his losses in those episodes. Do you feel like Thrawn actually poses a major threat to our protagonists in this series? Do you really think there's a chance that he's going to get away, he's going to return to the previous galaxy? Or do you doubt it? Do you think it's more of a, just a device? He's just there to play his antagonistic games and that's it. Thomas, you're a writer and you're here. So
okay.
What do you think?
I feel like, and they've announced that this is supposed to set up something larger. So I do think we are going to get Thrawn escaping at the end. There will be some resolution where our heroes will accomplish something that can be interpreted as a win. But I think Thrawn's getting to the other galaxy. And I this is what I would hope would happen, was that he's, he gets back, they attach the Chimera to the Eye of Sion, get to the normal Star Wars galaxy, and then Pelion is just waiting for him there with the fleet, with the remnant fleet, to turn it over to him, because that would be really that would be a big end series moment, almost on a downer. But it's how do we resolve this going into either next season, or if they keep to their plans and it's Lucasfilm and they may not, if they're going to do Filoni's kind of crossover movie that he would like to do, kind of an Heir to the Empire film. But I think that no matter what happens, I think Thrawn's getting away. I'm more interested in, because I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. I'm more interested in the Baylan and Shin stuff, simply because I have no clue what they're going on about with that. And so I'm very interested to see that. But I am excited to see Thrawn reach the main galaxy. And I think he will be a threat because, yes, in some instances, he does kind of justify retreats, but he also knows how to turn even a defeat to his advantage, and to pick something out of defeat to say well, I still made progress. And I think that's what makes him an effective military leader, more than the average Imperial admiral or general who's just useless usually.
Yeah. And maybe Mr. Rogers, we can all learn something from Thrawn.
Yes.
Get ourselves back up and tell ourselves that
it's a beautiful day in the galaxy.
Really in our favor. Yeah. Okay, Josh, what do you think? Do you think Thrawn is a threat?
I think he always is. No matter, even if he stayed in this other galaxy, he'd figure out some way to still be controlling the other galaxy or doing something. I don't think it's like a cockroach. It'll still be there until the head's cut off. You can't really seem to get rid of it. But as to sort of what it is that his overall goal is and where he actually fits into the Skywalker's timeline as well, that's where I'm more curious of seeing where it goes, of how it blends together.
And Ryan, what do you think?
I don't think Thrawn is intended to be a threat in this series. I think that he's kind of there as a plot device at the moment, and that they're intending to use him in the next series for Ahsoka or wherever they're taking this thing next. I think that he's meant in this series to be kind of a force of nature, He's kind of a bit inevitable. He's kind of just there. He will win. He will get to the other galaxy. And it's more about how our other heroes respond to the threat at hand. Because it would be really weird if in one episode, one finale, we get the grand defeat of Grand Admiral Thrawn, and he stays in La La Land forever. That would be very odd. I'll say that much.
Okay, so from our conversation today, I'm getting dreams and madness could mean dreams, Baylan, madness, Shin, dreams and madness, maybe dreams, Thrawn, madness, Morgan, because she's constantly Thrawn, what are you doing?
Yeah.
This is madness. Yeah. What do you guys have any further clues as to why Dreams and Madness happened to be the title for the episode?
I think it would have been a better episode title if that was the title given to the flashback episode.
Except I know that they're referring back to episode 6 because Baylan says that the planet Peridia is a place of dreams and madness.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
and so
okay.
I get
so
that
more about the planet.
Planet, yeah, but I would have liked to have seen more dreams and madness. To say that this is a place of dreams and madness, makes me think even being on this planet kind of makes you go a bit crazy.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Where
That's
are
what
the
it
crazy
makes me
force visions.
Right.
Or the crazy,
yeah.
you know, messing with your mind sort of things that we would expect on a planet full of force switches. You know, the last 3 great mothers in the galaxy, presumably. And we haven't seen anyone go crazy yet. Come on, guys.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I guess hopefully maybe there will be more Dreams and Madness in the finale. So for all of you out there, we do want to hear what you think. Any questions or comments about Star Wars at all are wonderful. And our thanks to listener Mike for commenting on our YouTube channel for SQPN and sharing a connection that he noticed between the introduction of Thrawn and the introduction of another blue-skinned military leader in the Japanese anime Star Blazers. Mike said, when the villain leader Deathlock is introduced, it's very similar to Thrawn's introduction. He's also blue in a white uniform. He marches up to his throne through all his assembled troops, with all of them chanting his name. So very cool. None of us are familiar with Star Blazers, but would love to learn more if anyone else sees other connections. I'm sure that was probably a connection that the creators of the series are familiar with, because they're definitely versed. I know at least Dave Filoni is versed in Japanese anime. So very cool. All right. So you all continue to send us your feedback at starquest@sqpn.com, or excuse me, Star Wars at sqpn.com. You can find StarQuest on Facebook, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Leave a comment there. You can find us on our YouTube channel, SQPN. You can also write to us on X, aka Twitter, and find us there at SQPN. And if you're interested, again, in joining Discord and learning all about what Ryan is up to, no, I'm just kidding, and the rest of us that are there, you can join us on our online community there, sqpn.com/star, excuse me, I'm all over the place. It's Dreams and Madness, sqpn.com/discord. All right, so find Secrets of Star Wars anywhere and everywhere you find your podcasts. You can also find us at sqpn.com/Star Wars and tell your friends. So until next time, and you better tune in you all next week, of course, because we'll have our finale episode for Ahsoka. Until next time, I see you again, Master Akreet. Thank you for joining us on the crew today.
Thank you, and may the Force be with you.
And thank you to the Pod Racer for joining us as well.
It was a pleasure to be here.
And Padawan, Josh Beeghley, thank you for joining us as well.
Always happy to join.
Yes, sir. All right. And once again, I am the one in the middle. The Bendu was probably known for some Dreams and Madness. Angela Sealana. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.
Here's another show on the StarQuest Network you're sure to enjoy, PlayStation Portable. Find it wherever fine podcasts are found, or at starquest.fm/PSP.